All right, in this video, I'm going to go over how to replace a spindle on one of these, I guess, older lawn tractors. There's new ones as well. Most of them have spindles that are rebuildable by replacing the bearings. The older ones can be quite a challenge on getting those spindles apart. So I'm going to really cover how we do that in this video. Anyway, before we get started, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let's get going. So these two have already been done. You can see how they spin really nicely. This one is the one that hasn't been done yet. So we're going to go over how to rebuild this complete spindle using the same arbor and just replacing the bearings. Alright, so we got the spindle off, and this is actually the Deutz-Allis 1981 tractor, 16 horsepower. It's really a tractor, it's not a lawnmower. But we got the spindle off. There's a few things you want to know about the spindle. One of them, after 39 years, if I've done my math right, this thing is welded on there. So it takes a little bit of an effort to get it off, but I'll show you the tricks that we've learned to do that. Anyway, let's go to the shop, get started on this. Alright, so we're in the workshop. We've got the spindle right here, and this is where we'll be performing all of our operations. So let me get the camera set up so you can see what I'm doing, and let's get started. So what you'll find with the spindle, the bottom end is actually fairly easy to disassemble. It's not a big deal. There's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. I'm going to put this right here. We'll do that real quick. Here's the easy part. Now, one of the things I have done is printed a diagram of how it actually goes back together, just to make life easier in case we forget. Of course, there's a bolt, there's a washer. This is to hold the blade on. This is where it gets a little funky. There's a little washer that holds this whole thing on here, so I'm going to need to get that off, and I'll use a really fine screwdriver for that. I've been able to reuse these, so that's a plus. Put it in our little storage bin. You would hope this will come out. So at this point, we're going to put a little bit of your penetrating oil of choice, whatever that might be. Just going to tap it. I'm not trying to get it out, just trying to set up some vibrations there. I may have to heat it up. Don't know. We'll find out. Put this back in the bin. Put this in the bin. This some of the stuff you'll find. Now this little cap is supposedly a bearing protector. And there's one more piece. It's probably unique to the Simplicity stuff, but there's a washer in there. Getting it out is fun. There's actually no ridges on this at all. It's just a little bit of a pain in the butt to get off, but at least it's off, and basically that helps protect the bearing in there. So that is side one. The fun side is this guy. Get this off. Set this in our parts bin, which is basically right here. But we are going to use this. And the reason is that this little beast is not going to come off. I can guarantee you that. The other two were a bear. So I've got a technique that I'm going to share with you using the inappropriate tools for the job, but that's all I got. So the way I've been getting this to work is to use a bearing splitter, upside down of all places or ways, and Got these threaded in here. It's actually the wrong size, but yeah, there's nothing normal about this. Try to get it centered if we can, as much as possible. Across that bolt. Now the bearing splitter itself is terrible, but it's not big enough to put bolts on both sides, so it's being held together by the grace of God, I guess you could say. And let's move this in a little bit. Now, little tip, this comes in handy. The piece I took off earlier actually helps to have it on. I'll show you why. Snug it up. Hit it with penetrating oil, in this case Freol. I'll let that soak, and what we'll do is we'll come back in a little while, tighten it up a little bit, and throw some heat on there, and then you'll see where the magic starts. So here's where some of the magic starts happening. First, I heat this up. And what I'm looking for is the Freol to start boiling a little bit. And it is. Then I'll add some fresh Freol. And then I will tighten this while tapping. Now, that's not going to pop off now. I'm going to let that sit, let everything soak. I'll come back in an hour, I'll do some more. And eventually what will happen is I'm tightening it and putting flame on it. It'll go ping and pop loose. I don't think it's going to pop now. This usually takes several sessions of this. Alright, now we'll let it sit for another hour or two. Snug this down. Some Freol in there. Get some heat. We're going to tap it with a hammer. It might break loose at this point. After a couple of these sessions, I think the heat expanding it and then the tapping jars it loose, and it'll pop out sometimes with an audible ping, which is pretty cool. And now we'll let it sit for a while and soak in. Come back and do it again. Hopefully in the next go around it'll pop. The whole idea is to heat the pulley. And I know the flame wavers over the bolt and everything. But the idea is if you heat the pulley and it expands, you have a better chance of breaking it loose, I think. My theory at least. There it goes, it just popped. Alright, so at this point we know it's popped loose. What we can do now is remove it. I will warn you, the components are still hot, so it's best to approach this with caution. So let me do this. Take this off. Actually, I really have to take that all the way off. Take the nut out because it will stop the pulley from coming all the way out. Alright, I'm going to set it down there, let it cool off, and we'll come back later and we'll do the final disassembly and reassembly of this with the new bearings. Alright, now it comes time to separate these two. Now, the way this works, the Arbor, the inside piece has got a bearing on both sides, and basically the bearings being pressed in kind of hold this whole thing together. So what we want to do is kind of push this out of here, and it should separate, but we'll see what happens, because I have found the best way to do it, of course, is to hit it with a little bit of Freol. You see, the problem with physics is trying to push this out at the same time while you got it on here. Well, something's not going to give, right? So let's try to do this. There we go. Again, it's really, well, it's a matter of physics. When you've got one bearing pushing against the other, the only way really to separate these, getting it on here is kind of a non-starter. It's not really going to work. So just getting it free floating in the air, holding it up here was what worked. Now let's get this bearing out. This should actually be pretty easy. And let's get the original screw in here. Alright, so we got this. We're going to clean this up. The last piece we got to do before we do any serious cleanup is get the bearing out of the lower part. And that should be pretty easy. There we go. So what we've got left to do is to clean this all up. I'll run a rotary tool or a Dremel tool around here on the inside of both, just to clean up the seat. Wire wheel this old gasket sealer off. You can tell they've been serviced once before because they didn't replace the foam part, which these call for. Wire wheel this, and we'll be ready to reassemble. Alright, we're ready to reassemble. I'll be using two types of grease, extra heavy duty grease from Lucas and Tin Man nickel anise. So one of the things I'm going to do, and I did find my gloves, which have a habit of disappearing, is grease the components where the bearings are going to go. Everything's been wire brushed and cleaned. This will make getting the bearings in there a little bit easier, and hopefully make it a little easier to get them out when the time arises to redo these again. Hopefully not in my lifetime. Alright, so I'm going to start by installing the bearings on the Arbor, and these will probably have to be driven on, so let's put these screws in. Bolts, excuse me, not screws. I want to catch the inner race. This one catches the inner race perfectly, so I'm going to do light taps at first, and hopefully that will get it on. Yep, that one's on. And we'll do the other side. There, and it is flush up against the stop on the Arbor. Next step is going to be, well, let's get these off for right now. The bottom usually goes on pretty easy. Slides right in. Alright, next step is getting some former gasket in here. Both sides. Yeah. Here's one of those little notches. Those notches would go here and here, so we'll try to line them up as best we can right now. It's going, but that one always gives me a little bit of trouble. So we'll go to a bigger hammer. And if that fails, we'll go to an even bigger hammer. As you can tell, I may have used a little bit of excess in the sealer, but there's no doubt water will never get in here. Alright, so the assembly sequence is pretty easy with this particular one. However, like I said, I always print out a reference just in case I need it. The top is fairly straightforward. Alright, so the assembly sequence for the bottom on this one, first is a washer, and I presume this is to probably protect the bearing. Next is the bearing protector cup. Alright, after we put the bearing protector cup on, this is going to go on, and this is actually held on by this washer. It's a toothed washer. And after that, we have this device, or this one, which actually holds the blade on. So once you're ready to put the blade on, the blade would be between these two. Then there's a washer, which is cupped. If you look at it, there's actually a little bit of a cup to it, so that puts pressure on everything. The bolt, and the bolt's going to get some anti-seize, of course, because it should. And once we're going to put this on the mower. Once we get the blades in, then we'll mount the blades. So for right now, I'm just going to snug this up. All right, the top, it's really easy. Gets bearing cup protector, and then you have a washer, or big heavy washer, lock washer, and the nut. So we'll tighten that down. And I've got the pulleys on order, so once pulleys come in, we'll get once the pulleys come in, we'll get everything mounted. For right now, we're going to mount this on the deck. All right, so one of the things I prefer doing is that once we got this together, before the gasket maker has a chance to set, I'll get it mounted, because that would actually compress everything together and give me a good seal. But before I do that, I'm going to put some anti-seize on the mounting bolts. Those are actually technically 40 foot-pounds, but I'll go back and check the torque on them. For right now, they're mounted. Huge difference, man. All of these have been rebuilt now. They've all got fresh bearings. I'm really pleased. This is actually a heck of a mowing deck. It really is precision. When you adjust the height, the back changes height, the front changes, everything changes height to where you need it to be. So it's a really good deck. Anyway, I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, hit share and like, and definitely don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.